Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive. Today, we're tackling one of those big questions, the ones that keep you up at night. Are we alone in the universe?
It's a question that never gets old, does it?
Right. I mean, it's been debated for centuries,
Right.
really, since people first started looking up at the stars.
Exactly. And what's so cool is that we're not just speculating anymore. We've got actual science to work with now.
That's right. We're going to be
Yeah.
digging into some serious research today,
Yeah.
historical accounts, too. And, well, let's just say some of the theories out there are pretty wild.
We'll try to sort the fact from the fiction, give everyone a good look at what we know, what we think we know, and what's still a total mystery.
Exactly. So where do we even begin with a question this big?
Well, I think a good place to start is astrobiology.
Astrobiology.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the study of life
Yeah.
beyond Earth, right?
Exactly. It's a whole field dedicated to figuring out if life could exist elsewhere in the universe and what it might look like.
Okay, so that makes sense. And I know one of the big focuses in astrobiology is exoplanets.
You got it. Exoplanets are planets that orbit other stars, not our sun. And the really exciting thing is that we've already discovered thousands of them.
Thousands. Wow. That's incredible. When I was a kid, we barely knew if other planets even existed outside of our solar system.
It's crazy how much our knowledge has exploded in just a few decades. And the sheer number of exoplanets out there really suggests that our solar system, with its conditions for life, might not be so unique after all.
Okay. So that's thousands of planets out there.
Yeah.
But are we talking about little green men here? Have we found actual life on any of these exoplanets yet?
Not quite yet, but think about it. Finding life, especially intelligent life, it's like trying to find a needle in a cosmic haystack. The distances are so vast.
Yeah, and we're still trying to figure out the best ways to detect life signs from so far away.
Exactly. We're working with telescopes and analyzing light and looking for specific chemical signatures that could indicate the presence of life.
It's like playing cosmic detective.
That's a great way to put it.
So even if we haven't found aliens waving back at us yet, could there be other simpler forms of life out there? Maybe things we wouldn't even recognize as life at first.
That's a really interesting question. And it brings us to these amazing organisms called extremophiles.
Extremophiles, huh? Those sound pretty hardcore.
Oh, they are. Extremophiles are organisms that can survive and even thrive in some of the most extreme environments on Earth.
So like the bottom of the ocean or in volcanoes or something?
Even more extreme than that, we're talking about places like deep-sea hydrothermal vents, where temperatures reach hundreds of degrees Celsius, or acidic hot springs, where the pH is so low it would burn your skin off.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking about some serious survivors here. But how does this relate to aliens?
Well, it shows us that life can exist in conditions that we once thought were impossible. This means that the possibilities for life existing elsewhere in the universe just expanded dramatically, maybe on planets with seemingly hostile environments that we might have dismissed before.
So those sci-fi movies with the weird alien creatures living in all those crazy environments, maybe they're not so far-fetched after all.
Maybe not, and that's the exciting part. We're only just beginning to scratch the surface of what's possible.
Okay, so how do we actually go about searching for signs of life on these distant planets? I mean, we can't exactly just hop on a spaceship and go take a look.
Right. There are a couple of approaches. One way is to look for what we call biosignatures. These are chemical hints in a planet's atmosphere that might suggest the presence of life.
Okay, so like certain gases that wouldn't be there unless there was some kind of biological activity going on.
Exactly. And then there's SETI.
Ah, SETI. That's the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, right? The one with all the giant radio telescope.
That's the one SETI scientists are scanning the skies, listening for any kind of signal that could be artificial in origin. Something that couldn't have come from a natural source.
So basically, we're waiting for ET to phone home.
You could say that.
Have we had any luck yet? Any alien radio shows we can tune into?
Haha. Nothing confirmed yet. The universe is a pretty noisy place. There are tons of natural radio waves and other emissions out there.
I can imagine. Must be like trying to hear someone whisper in the middle of a rock concert.
It's a huge challenge, for sure. But SETI scientists are constantly developing new technologies and techniques to improve their chances of finding that needle in a haystack.
Well, I'm rooting for them. But speaking of searching for the unexplained, there's been a lot of buzz lately about UFOs, or as they call them now, UAPs. We've even had reports from NASA and the Pentagon.
It's definitely a hot topic right now, and I think those official reports have legitimized the discussion in a way we haven't seen before.
So does that mean the government's finally admitting that aliens are visiting us?
Hold on, not so fast. While there are definitely some UAP sightings that remain unexplained, it's important to approach all of this with a healthy dose of scientific skepticism.
So you're saying not every strange light in the sky is an alien spaceship?
Exactly. There are a lot of things that can be mistaken for UAPs. Things like weather balloons, drones, military aircraft, even just unusual atmospheric conditions.
Makes sense. But what about those sightings that can't be easily explained? The ones that even experienced pilots have reported. What about those?
Well, those are the ones that really pique our curiosity, right? It's possible that some of them could represent phenomena that we don't fully understand yet.
That's where things get really interesting. And speaking of interesting, let's dive into some specific UFO cases.
Sounds good to me. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think we have to start with the granddaddy of them all, right? Roswell, New Mexico, 1947.
Oh, Roswell. It's become almost synonymous with UFOs and government cover-ups. But as with many historical events, separating fact from fiction can be tricky.
Okay, let's try to untangle this. What actually happened in Roswell?
Well, the story goes that in July of 1947, there were reports of a flying disc crashing on a ranch near Roswell. This obviously caused a huge stir and a lot of excitement about a potential alien visit. But the Army Air Forces quickly came out with a statement saying that the debris was just from a weather balloon.
A weather balloon. That seems a little underwhelming for something that's become such a legend.
I know, right? But at the time, it seemed to satisfy most people. The whole thing kind of faded from the headlines.
So how did it become such a big deal then?
Well, fast forward a few decades to the late 1970s. New witnesses started coming forward with claims that contradicted the official story.
Oh, really? What were they saying?
One of the key figures was a guy named Walter Haut. He had been the public information officer at the Roswell Army Airfield at the time of the incident, and he claimed that he had actually seen a flying disc and that the government had covered up the whole thing to hide the truth about the crash.
Wow, so he's saying it wasn't just a weather balloon, but something much more extraterrestrial.
Exactly. And his claims were backed up by others who came forward with similar stories. Some even described unusual debris and even alleged alien bodies being recovered from the crash site.
Okay, now that's taking things to a whole new level.
Mm-hmm.
But was there any physical evidence to back up these claims? Anything besides eyewitness accounts?
That's where it gets a little murky. A lot of the people who claim to have seen physical evidence said it was either lost or destroyed or never photographed. So it's really hard to say for sure what was real and what wasn't.
I see. So it becomes a bit of a he said, she said situation with a healthy dose of government secrecy thrown in for good measure.
Pretty much. And that's why Roswell, despite its place in UFO legend, remains an open question to this day.
So the truth is out there somewhere.
Maybe. But Roswell isn't the only incident that's raised questions about UFOs. You mentioned those more recent military sightings from 2004 to 2021.
Yeah, these aren't just random folks seeing strange lights in the sky, right? These are trained military personnel, pilots with years of experience reporting encounters with things that they couldn't explain.
Exactly. And those reports really make you wonder what's going on up there.
So give me some details. What were they seeing? What makes these military reports so compelling?
Well, one of the most famous cases is the USS Nimitz encounter. It happened in 2004 off the coast of Southern California.
Okay, I've heard of this one. Go on.
So 2 Navy pilots flying FA-18F fighter jets reported seeing this tic-tac-shaped object hovering over the water, like a tic-tac candy.
Seriously? That's a pretty specific description.
I know, right? And they described it as being about 40 feet long, white oblong, and with no visible wings, rotors, or exhaust plumes.
Okay, so definitely not your average aircraft.
Right. And here's the really weird part. They said this thing was moving erratically, making sudden changes in direction and speed that seemed to defy physics.
Sounds like something straight out of a movie.
It does, and the pilots weren't the only ones who saw it. The whole encounter lasted several minutes, and their observations were backed up by radar data from the USS Princeton, a Navy cruiser that was nearby.
So you've got trained pilots, you've got radar confirmations, and an object that's behaving in a way that doesn't seem possible. That's pretty convincing stuff. What did the Navy say about all this?
Well, that's part of what makes it so interesting. The Navy hasn't officially explained the Nimitz encounter. It's still considered one of the most credible and well-documented UAP sightings in recent history.
So officially it's an unsolved mystery.
Yep. And the Nimitz encounter isn't the only one. There have been a lot of reports from military personnel about UAPs exhibiting strange flight characteristics.
Like what?
Things like appearing and disappearing instantly, or making sudden changes in altitude and direction that would be impossible for conventional aircraft.
Makes you wonder what we're dealing with here.
It definitely does. And all of these reports, coupled with declassified CIA archives that have come to light in recent years, have pushed the government to start taking the UAP phenomenon a lot more seriously.
So even the authorities are admitting that they don't have all the answers.
It seems that way. In 2020, the Pentagon even released those 3 videos taken by Navy pilots. You know, the ones that show UAPs exhibiting some pretty wild flight patterns.
Yeah, I remember those videos. They were all over the internet. And then in 2021, wasn't there an official report on UAPs released by the government?
There was. It was from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. And it basically acknowledged that there are these unexplained aerial phenomena out there that need further investigation.
So even though we're starting to take this whole thing more seriously, we're still dealing with a lot of unknowns, right?
Absolutely. We're just scratching the surface here. And just because we don't have an explanation for something doesn't automatically mean it's aliens.
Right. We need to be careful about jumping to conclusions. But at the same time, it's hard not to let our imaginations run wild a little bit. And that's where those unconfirmed hypotheses and theories come in. The ones that really push the boundaries of what we think we know.
And some of those hypotheses are pretty mind-blowing. For example, what if life doesn't require carbon to exist? What if there are life forms out there that are based on elements we wouldn't even consider here on Earth?
Okay, that's a concept that really stretches my brain. I mean, we're so used to thinking of life as carbon-based, like us. But what other elements could even support life?
Well, some scientists have suggested that silicon could be a possibility.
Silicon? Wait, like what computer chips are made of?
Exactly. Silicon is actually pretty similar to carbon chemically, and it's incredibly abundant in the universe. Plus, it can form complex molecules, just like carbon can.
So theoretically, you could have silicon-based life forms out there.
Theoretically, yes. But there are some challenges. Silicon bonds are weaker than carbon bonds, especially in the presence of water. And silicon dioxide, the stuff that silicon forms when it reacts with oxygen, is a solid, not a gas like carbon dioxide.
So imagine a creature that breathes out rocks instead of air. That's a pretty wild image.
Yeah.
But even if silicon-based life is a long shot, there are even weirder ideas out there. I've heard about these things called plasmoids.
Plasmoids, huh? Yeah, they're definitely one of the more out there concepts.
So what are they exactly?
Well, plasma is often referred to as the 4th state of matter. You've got solids, liquids, gases, and then you have plasma. It's basically superheated gas where the atoms have been stripped of some of their electrons. It's what stars are made of, and it's found throughout the universe.
Okay, so how could something made of superheated gas be considered alive?
That's the big question, right? But some research suggests that these things called plasmoids, which are like self-contained structures within plasma, can exhibit some pretty complex behaviors.
Like what?
Well, they can form complex structures, interact with their environment, and some scientists even believe they might be able to replicate, kind of like how cells divide. They can also store and release energy, which is a key characteristic of living organisms.
Wow. So are you saying that there could be these glowing orbs of plasma floating around in space that are actually alive?
It's definitely a possibility, although it's highly speculative. Some scientists have even proposed that plasmoids could explain some UAP sightings, particularly the ones involving glowing orbs or those strange movements that seem to defy aerodynamics.
Okay, now that's a connection I hadn't thought of. It definitely adds a whole new layer of mystery to the UFO phenomenon. But speaking of mysteries, I think it's time we delve into some of the more fringe theories out there.
Oh, you mean like the ancient astronaut theories?
Exactly. You know, the ones that claim aliens built the pyramids or that ancient cave paintings depict encounters with extraterrestrials. What's the deal with those?
Well, those theories are definitely popular in pop culture, but from a scientific perspective, they're generally not taken very seriously.
So all those shows on the History Channel about aliens and ancient civilizations, they're more entertainment than actual history.
I would say so, yeah. The problem with ancient astronaut theories is that they often rely on misinterpreting ancient artifacts or texts.
Like what?
Well, for example, they might point to a carving that vaguely resembles a spaceship or a myth that mentions beings descending from the sky and claim it as evidence of alien visitation. But there are usually more plausible explanations that fit better with what we know about history and archaeology.
So while it's fun to speculate, we should be careful about taking those ancient astronaut theories as fact.
Exactly. It's important to be critical and to consider alternative explanations that are more grounded in evidence.
Makes sense. But even if we set aside the more outlandish theories, the possibility of alien life, in whatever form it may take, remains a pretty compelling mystery. And the journey of exploring that possibility is just as fascinating as any answer we might find.
Couldn't agree more. The search itself is what keeps us pushing the boundaries of our knowledge and our understanding of the universe.
And it's a search that's just getting started.
Exactly. We've got so much more to explore. It really is. And as we keep going deeper into this, it's important to remember that even our understanding of life itself, it's always changing. What might seem impossible to us today, well, it could be totally normal tomorrow, just like the idea of planets around other stars. That was once just a wild idea.
That's true. It reminds me of that Carl Sagan quote, somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known. That really sums up the whole spirit of this search, doesn't it?
It really does. It's all about that drive to explore, that desire to understand where we fit into this massive universe. And hey, who knows, maybe that something incredible is proof of alien life out there.
Maybe. But even if we don't ever find absolute proof, the search itself is still valuable, isn't it? It forces us to think bigger, to challenge what we think we know. It's like holding up a mirror to ourselves, in a way.
I like that, the mirror analogy. It's true. We're taking our technology, our knowledge, all of it, and reaching out into the cosmos, hoping for a sign that we're not alone.
Exactly. And it's hard not to let your imagination run wild with the possibilities. What if we discovered an alien civilization that's way ahead of us? Like millions of years ahead technologically. Imagine what we could learn.
It would be mind-blowing. Think about it. Learning from a civilization that's that advanced, it could revolutionize everything. Physics, medicine, energy, you name it. It would be like hitting fast forward on human progress.
That's an incredible thought. But let's be real for a second. If we did meet some super advanced aliens, how would we even talk to them? I mean, we don't even know if they see the universe the same way we do.
That's one of the biggest challenges, isn't it? Communicating with extraterrestrial intelligence, we're kind of stuck with our own way of seeing things. We assume they'd communicate like us, radio wave signals, that sort of thing. But what if they've moved beyond that? What if their way of communicating is so advanced we can't even grasp it?
It's like trying to explain the internet to someone from 1,000 years ago. It would be completely beyond their comprehension. So how do you even search for something that you might not recognize?
That's the tough part, right? One way is to just keep our eyes open for anything unusual. Look for patterns or signals that just don't fit with what we expect from nature. It's like trying to find a puzzle piece that doesn't quite belong.
Right, like looking for something that stands out from the background noise. Okay, I'm starting to get how huge this challenge is, but it does feel like we're living in a pretty exciting time for all of this.
Yeah.
There's a renewed curiosity about it, and that whole stigma around UFOs seems to be fading.
You're right. People are starting to realize that the universe is a vast and mysterious place, and the possibility of alien life is becoming more mainstream, more serious research, more government transparency. Even pop culture is embracing it.
And don't forget all the data we're collecting now. With all the new telescopes and space missions, we're learning more about the universe at an incredible pace. It's like we're casting a wider net all the time.
And with all the advancements in AI, we're getting better at sorting through all that data, too, finding patterns and anomalies that humans might miss. It's a really exciting time to be involved in this field.
It is.
Yeah.
But with all this new information, we have to be careful about what we believe, Fry. There's still a lot of misinformation out there about aliens.
Absolutely. It's easy to get swept up in the excitement, but we need to be critical thinkers. Always ask for evidence. Don't just believe everything you read online.
So how do we become good cosmic detectives, so to speak? How do we separate the real evidence from the noise and all the hype?
Well, first off, always check your sources. Is the information coming from a legitimate scientific organization, a peer-reviewed journal, a trusted news source, or is it from some random blog or a social media post with a clear bias?
Right, so don't believe everything you read on the internet.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to aliens.
Exactly. And remember, extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. If someone's saying aliens built the pyramids, they better have some solid proof to back it up, not just vague interpretations or wild guesses.
And even when we do have evidence, we need to be critical about it, right? Just because someone has a blurry photo or a shaky video, it doesn't automatically mean it's an alien spaceship. We have to look at the whole picture. Could it be a hoax? Is there a simpler explanation that we're missing?
You're right on the money. It's all about using critical thinking skills, being careful about what we believe, and being willing to change our minds when we get new evidence.
So be curious, but be cautious. Be open-minded, but be critical. And always keep asking questions. That's a good approach, right?
Absolutely. And remember, this whole search for alien life is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be dead ends, there will be times we get things wrong, but that's all part of the journey.
I like that. It's the journey that matters. And who knows, maybe one day, with enough science, enough technology, and a little bit of luck, we'll finally have a definitive answer to the question that's fascinated humanity for so long.
Mm.
Are we alone in the universe?
Until then, we keep searching. Keep asking questions. Keep our minds open to all the possibilities.
Beautifully said. You know, it feels like we've covered so much already. The science, the history, the wild theories. But there's one more piece I want to explore. The cultural impact of all this. The way aliens have shaped our stories and our culture.
It's amazing, isn't it? The idea of aliens has been woven into our collective consciousness for centuries. It's in our art, our literature, our movies, even our fears and our hopes.
It's true. Aliens have become this cultural phenomenon. They're everywhere in entertainment. Books, movies, video games, even music.
It shows how powerful the idea of the unknown is, right? Extraterrestrial life. It just grabs hold of our imaginations. It makes us question everything about our place in the universe.
And it's not just about entertainment either. The idea of aliens has influenced our science, our philosophy, even our religions.
That's so true. It raises these huge questions like, what does it mean to be human? Are we really unique? What does this all mean for our understanding of God or creation?
Big questions, for sure. No wonder aliens have sparked both fear and fascination for so long.
A lot of the fear comes from that fear of the unknown, right? We project our own anxieties onto aliens, imagine them as these hostile invaders who want to take over our planet.
Like in all those alien invasion movies, right? I feel like a lot of that fear really ramped up during the Cold War, when everyone was worried about nuclear attacks and stuff.
Exactly. All those sci-fi movies from back then often showed aliens as aggressive, technologically advanced, reflecting the fears of the time.
But there's also a sense of wonder about aliens, isn't there? The idea that maybe we're not alone in this vast universe, that there could be other intelligent beings out there. It's humbling and inspiring at the same time.
I agree. It forces us to look beyond ourselves, to realize that we might not be the center of everything. And it opens up this incredible possibility of connecting with other cultures, other ways of seeing the universe.
It's like discovering a whole new branch of the human family. But on a cosmic scale, imagine the knowledge we could share, the things we can learn from each other.
It would be a complete game changer, a moment that rewrites how we see ourselves and our place in the cosmos.
It's almost too big to grasp. And yet, it's a real possibility, one that we can't ignore. A question that drives our science, our art, our philosophy.
The search for extraterrestrial life is a search for meaning, in a way. It's about understanding who we are, where we came from, and what our future might hold.
It's amazing how this whole alien thing has become such a huge part of our culture.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it everywhere, right? Movies, books, video games, music even.
It's a real testament to how powerful the idea of the unknown is, right? Like extraterrestrial life, it speaks to something deep inside us, makes us think about our place in the universe, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just entertainment either, right? This whole alien thing has influenced the way we think about science, philosophy, even religion.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. The possibility of life beyond Earth, it forces us to ask some pretty big questions. What does it mean to be human? Are we really special? What does it mean for our beliefs about God or creation?
Yeah, those are some pretty heavy questions, for sure. No wonder people have been so fascinated and maybe a little freaked out by aliens for, like, forever.
Well, yeah, a lot of that anxiety probably comes from that fear of the unknown, right? We tend to, like, project our own fears onto aliens, imagine them as these hostile invaders coming to conquer us.
Like in all those classic alien invasion movies.
Yeah.
And I bet a lot of that fear got even worse during the Cold War when everyone was so on edge about nuclear war and stuff.
Totally. A lot of the sci-fi movies from that time period definitely reflected those anxieties. You know, aliens were often portrayed as aggressive, super advanced, like a real threat.
Right. But then there's the other side of it too, right? There's a sense of wonder that comes with this idea. The idea that we might not be alone, that there could be other intelligent beings out there. It's both humbling and inspiring at the same time, I think.
I agree. It makes you realize that we humans might not be the center of the universe, you know, and it opens up all these possibilities of connecting with other cultures, learning from other perspectives.
It's like finding a whole new branch of the human family, but on a galactic scale. Imagine sharing knowledge, exchanging ideas, maybe even collaborating on like huge scientific projects.
It would be a total paradigm shift, right? Like it would completely change the way we see ourselves and our place in the cosmos.
It's mind-blowing to even think about. And yet it's a real possibility, something we can't just ignore. It's a driving force behind our science, our art, our philosophy.
The search for extraterrestrial life is like a search for meaning, isn't it? It's about understanding who we are, where we came from, where we're going as a species.
Well said. And I think that brings us back to something we were talking about earlier, the importance of being critical thinkers, right?
Absolutely. as we keep digging into this topic, we need to balance that curiosity with a healthy dose of skepticism. Be open to new ideas, but don't just believe everything you hear. Ask for evidence.
So basically, keep looking up at the stars, keep asking those big questions, but don't forget to use your head.
Exactly. The universe is a vast and mysterious place, and this whole search for alien life, it's just a small part of this huge adventure that we're all on.
Well said. And who knows? Maybe one day, we'll finally have a definitive answer to that age-old question. Are we alone? But until then, the journey itself is pretty amazing, isn't it? It makes us think bigger, dream bigger, and appreciate the wonders of the cosmos just a little bit more.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, to everyone listening out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep your minds open to the endless possibilities.
And on that note of cosmic wonder, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of the alien question. It's been a truly fascinating journey, and we hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
Until next time, keep searching for those answers and never stop looking up at those stars.